We're back, Squeeze the Neck podcast at home today in London with my mate Radio Rahim. Thanks for doing this, bro. Appreciate you. So just for context, we met recently at a USIC Dubois sort of fight week, and then you invited me to another event after, and we've been best buddies ever since.
That's right.
That's the story I'm sticking to. But as I say, grateful for you to have me at your place, mate, to do this. And before we get into anything, because I'm assuming like this is Squeeze the Neck, right? So martial artist podcast. A lot of boxing fans, but some are more grappling heavy. So if you don't know, now you know. But tell us who you are, mate, because if you're a boxing fan, everyone will know.
Well, yeah, Radio Rahim, man. I've been covering boxing my entire adult life. Hail from Los Angeles or Northern California originally, but the west coast of California. I travel to wherever the fights are. And right now, the fights are in the United Kingdom. However, I'll be in Las Vegas in just a couple of weeks for Canelo Crawford, a massive event, the first in TKO boxing. So your grappling and MMA fans will certainly know that Dana White stepped into the boxing arena, if you will, with a massive maiden voyage. And so we'll see next week. There's going to be a ton of things going on. I'm interested to see myself exactly how TKO performs as a promoter in the boxing space and what they have planned. Obviously, it's still a Ring Magazine event. It's everyone I think in the world of combat sports across the lexicon will be in Las Vegas in a couple weeks' time. So looking forward to that, and we'll travel wherever the fights happen.
Boom. Well, I was going to say, you said the fights are in England nowadays, but obviously the big one's not. But at the same time, Saudi's coming on, which maybe we'll get into as we go along, mate. But the fight that's coming up, the Canelo Crawford, which you mentioned, we'll come back to properly later. But it's one of them ones that's a big fight, I think, that it's very split on who people think are going to win this one, right? A lot of the time people sort of got like very much in one camp or the other, depending on timing. I guess there's an element of that too, but this one's a toss-em, I think, isn't it?
I find that the closer you get to a fight, the more it starts to draw into these 50-50 ponds.
Right.
However, you have to go back to when you first heard the fight was announced.
Yeah.
That typically, to me, is the odds-on favorite for a reason.
Okay.
And I would say that Canelo has to be seen as the favorite, which in fact, in an odd way, doesn't diminish Crawford's ability to win the fight. However, the likelihood that he wins the fight, I think, is diminished by Canelo's likelihood of winning the fight.
Yeah.
So that is a distinction there with the difference. The fact that there are people who I would say Canelo has an extreme likelihood of winning the fight, and then also their ability to win the fight is slim to none, that's a different kind of favorite.
Yeah,
right? This is just where the smart money would have to go. On paper, if you run it down, it's very difficult to come out with Crawford as a favorite against Canelo at 168 pounds.
Right.
That said, we've not seen, I don't believe, the ceiling of Crawford's ability. I don't know that he has been pushed to the limits or tested so greatly that I can say where his breaking point is. I don't know if it's weight. I don't know if it's power. I don't know if it's chin. I don't know if it's his engine. I don't know, because I don't know that anyone has really pushed him to the levels to where it's like, okay, he's a hair away from losing or a hair away from winning, and we've seen him at that fork in the road. So hopefully, if this fight lives up to the hype, that's what we'll see, and we'll find out. But for Canelo's sake, at 168 pounds, we kind of know where his breaking point is. It's 175 pounds.
Right.
So,
yeah.
In that respect alone, you'd have to give the edge to Canelo, and I do. But I'm showing up at the fight like I do for all the fights because nobody knows.
Right.
These predictive measures are simply scientists looking at two elements, hoping to predict what happens when they come together for the first and only time that the elements will ever be those same elements on that same moment, in that same night, in that same space. If these guys have a rematch, it won't be the same.
No.
So what we see on September 13th is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And anyone who tells you they know for a fact what's going to happen is a damn liar or a fake scientist.
Pseudo-scientist, I was going to say, yeah. But I think there's so many moving parts with this fight because, like, first of all, people keep sort of aging out Canelo as well, but Crawford's older than Canelo, for starters. I know it doesn't work that way.
People don't even think about that.
People don't think about
that.
They
assume that Canelo's older than Crawford because they've seen so much of Canelo,
Right.
and in comparison, so little of Crawford.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, Canelo's had a long career, hasn't he? You know, he turned pro at 15. I've mentioned this on him many times, but like to turn pro at 15, fight grown men and keep winning. I don't care who you're fighting. You can be fighting cab drivers or, you know, farmers, can't you? Like, they're still grown men and you're 15. Like, for him to go through the ranks and stay undefeated for so long till he run into Floyd, you know, it's a big thing. But there does come a point, I think, where we've all seen it a million times. Fighters get old in one fight, don't they? They turn up and it's like, all right, it's over.
It does happen. However, usually it's like an overnight success is the same thing as an overnight failure. There's a lot of little markers along the way that if you notice, it climbs you to that point of tipping into success, or you've been having some diminishing returns, and at one stage it appears to be failure on the same night. That I don't believe I'm seeing from Canelo. I think the amount of difficult challenges he's chosen of late is to be criticized, and maybe, if anything, that would be his Achilles heel going into this, that he hasn't stayed sharp against the best of the best. He's intentionally, I believe, taken fights that might be less challenging than those available to him.
Yep.
So I do think that staying in and staying in tough keeps you sharp and keeps you at the top of your game, because you're constantly trying to make sure that your levels are at tip-top to beat the tip-top competition. I don't know that Canelo has been in front of the tip-top competition. However, he's been busier than Crawford, so maybe that is a counterbalance. You know, I also think that staying busy keeps you sharp. I think ring rust is a real thing. Crawford is used to not working as often as some fighters, so maybe that's just baked in his cake and it doesn't diminish his returns. However, the conventional wisdom in this sport would suggest that you want to stay 2, maybe even 3 fights a year, but at least 2 fights a year to stay sharp. So you don't want to come into a fight against Canelo at 168 pounds where he's hitting on all cylinders from the first bell, and you're, you know, trying to shake off rust for the first 3 or 4 rounds.
Right. I mean, obviously, like, the weight's the thing that everyone's talking about as well, but, like, there comes a point where... Have you been around Canelo by any chance?
I mean, I've been around him
close
since
to him.
I've
Like, how thick
covered
is he?
him.
Is he? Yeah, right. Is he a big guy? Like, in person, is he big?
He's not as big as you might think. I mean, the other thing is, you know, you're a fighter. I cover the sport. I'm in the gym all the time, training just for sport, not for competition. And so when you think of fighters and you see these guys in the ring against guys who are essentially their size, in your mind, they're big, but it's like watching Tom Cruise in a movie. Right. He's not a big guy. He's just surrounded by other small actors or at a great camera size. So they're in a lot better shape than I am. Maybe not you. They're in with guys that are about their same size. So you see them on the screen, and you imagine they're huge. But if you think about it, 168 pounds is not a lot of weight, really.
No.
And especially if you're in very good shape, as you know, muscle weighs more than fat. So no, these guys are not big. I'm bigger than these guys. Doesn't mean I can beat them.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
But they're not massive guys. Canelo, yes, he's shorter, so he's going to be thicker.
Right.
He's going to have a little bit more prominent, visible muscle. But he's not a big guy. And Crawford's a bit taller than him and cut well. Right. So when you see him standing, you know, face to face, especially now, or at least in recent photos and such, they do look a little closer than you would expect. But in a competitive sport at the elite level, looks can be incredibly deceiving.
Right.
I mean, Tyson Fury looks like a shit can you'd be seeing at the end of a bar at any good old, football match. Yeah. But he can go in with the best of them and the most chiseled, bodybuilders he would call Anthony Joshua, for instance. That doesn't dictate what he's able to do. Now, granted, he's an anomaly. You generally don't want that physique as a heavyweight.
Well, Andy Ruiz is the other one that comes to mind.
That's right. But it can be successful. It can work if it works for you. Neither one of these guys in this case are going to come in soft. So I'll be interested to see what Crawford's physique looks like at that weight and exactly where he comes in. He's been telling us for months now, I walk around 180 already and all this, which I don't know, might be head games for Canelo, might be the truth. But putting that amount of extra weight on, if in fact you're not comfortable or you're not accustomed to fighting with that much weight on, it can make a difference. It can. We just saw Conor Benn and Chris Eubank. Now the difference is Chris Eubank, well, some would say as having to drain all the way down. Others would say that's your fighting weight anyway. You've been making that weight for some time. However, it clearly wasn't easy for him to make the weight, as it cost him, $500,000 for the weight of a AA battery that he couldn't get off. So I think out of the window goes the idea that, that's an easy weight for him to make. But also the difference that Ben had to make up might have been the difference in the fight. I mean, there were moments late in the fight where maybe a heavier Conor Benn, a more heavy-handed Conor Benn, who was comfortable at that weight, might have been able to stop Eubank, right?
Yep.
So each one of these things is such a unique experiment, and we can only operate off of what we have seen in the past. And this particular dynamic, part of what makes it so fascinating, is we've never seen Crawford at 168 pounds. And we've never seen Canelo against a pound-for-pound real finisher like Crawford, a guy who people debate whether he should be number one pound for pound or Canelo should be number one pound for pound. The last time we were in a situation like that, it was Floyd Mayweather. But even Floyd Mayweather wasn't known as a finisher. He wasn't the kind of guy that's knocking you out.
No.
And so what we have seen is Crawford at 54 against Madrimov, which wasn't a real thrilling experience. It wasn't like he stopped Madrimov or even knocked him down, and arguably it was a close fight even.
Yeah, very workmanlike performance, wasn't it? You know what I mean? Like, sort of got the job done. It didn't set the world alight by any means.
Didn't set the world on fire, and didn't give you the kind of indication that, you know what he needs to do? Go up another 8 pounds. Not even more than 8 pounds.
No, 14 pounds,
Another 14 pounds. Like that. Yeah. That is certainly not the message I got on the night. So he's got a hell of a hurdle in front of him. And only those two men will decide on the night who is the better man at that moment.
It's a good point. It's a good point at that moment, and I think a lot of people miss that, don't they? A lot of people were like,
they do.
We've all woke up. I know it's different, but you've gone to work with a bellyache some days, right? And you're not feeling your best. You just do what you can, right?
Yeah.
Like if that night happens to be you got Terence Crawford in front of you, you just got to deal with it. You just got to get on with things. And like, people miss that, don't they? Fighters deal with that all the time. You're never going to get like the 100% best versus the 100% best. You get close to it, right? And people are on their their best form and whatever. But there's always little elements that come into play.
There are so many things involved in each man's life, or woman if it were, that you can't calculate for. They're humans. You might have had an argument with your wife that morning, or you may be worried about your mother fell ill the morning of the fight or the night before. You might just be unfocused. You might have had, like you said, something that upset your stomach that you usually eat all the time. Who knows? Right. You know what I mean? All of those things are part of being an elite athlete, performing at a level that most people can't attain on the moment when it's needed, regardless of what else is going on. And that is certainly part of the matchup that is very hard for us to predict. You just don't know. But, no one's going to want to hear any excuses on September 14th.
Nor should we either, right? I think there's an honour with fighters where you don't mention an excuse, even if there is one. But I tell you what, take a step back. The reason I asked you initially about his size for the weight, because from me being around fighters and stuff, that typically, maybe middleweight a little bit, but super middleweight definitely, is the first weight where you see people with really massive frames that can boil themselves down. Like Callum Smith comes to mind, George Groves, them sort of cats that are like very, very big for the weight, but boiled down, and they've got the body type or whatever it is that allows them to get there healthy. Whereas Canelo is obviously, what's Canelo, 5'7", 5'8", like thick as a Snickers, I think you say stateside, right? And he's, big boy, strong, never been dropped, never really been hurt, other than when he was really young. Cotto's brother, I think, gave him a shake once, didn't he? But that was, welterweight probably. But that's the weight where people start to get real big big size of body and frame. Callum Smith, I've mentioned already, when he fought Canelo, looked, huge compared to him, but obviously a different frame. They're built differently. But
look at the outcome of that.
Right, yes.
So also 168, and there's no rehydration clause. So we know that the fight won't be fought at 168 pounds, not for Canelo anyway.
That's big too, isn't it, the rehydration?
That is big, pun intended.
Yeah, right.
Because now we're looking at probably more like 180, maybe even 185.
Yeah.
And I don't expect Crawford to be 168 dripping wet. I'm not even sure if he makes 168. We'll see. I mean, he's given us a lot of, talk about how big he is now, but I don't buy any of it. Not until we see him on the scales, not until we see him during the media workout. Right. I can get a sense of him on the week, what he really looks like at that weight. But I'd be surprised if if Crawford was heavier than 68 or 70 pounds at most on the night.
I'd be surprised, yeah. I'd be surprised. Because, again, it's all right being that size, like 180 or whatever he's saying he is, but when you've gone through, like, an intense training camp, like, that weight's coming down, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, these boxers, like, for anyone who's ever been around high-level fighters in a gym, like, seeing when it's going down, like, that's no joke, right? That training is, like, borderline insanity. So, like, these guys ain't keeping weight.
And he's also got to be careful. Nobody's talking about this, but he's not a young guy.
He's not,
so
no.
you put that weight on, you put that muscle on, you get your body conditioned to carry that weight, you perform at that weight, and then what are you going to do? Then you're going to lose 20 pounds for your next fight? You have to keep, because even if, you know what I mean, or you're going to campaign at 68 now? Like, you're playing a dangerous game at that age, putting on that kind of weight.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, does he see this as an exit strategy, you think? Like, maybe get the win over Canelo, have the rematch, sail off into the sunset? Could that
I
be
have
part
no
of it?
idea. I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's thinking. I do know, though, that this would be the biggest moment of glory. It'll surpass the Spence win, and it'll be very difficult for a fighter at that stage to walk away, especially if he thinks he can get back down to his weight class. You know, what's waiting on him there? Boots? Like, you know, yeah, which is, but if you just beat Canelo at 68 and you're Terrence Crawford, you're not really worried about.
But then you say, boots, come to me. I'm not coming down.
Or, you know what I mean? You just go getting undisputed, and hopefully your star now power is so big that you're going to get big money and can make a big draw for these fights. Because that's where it's about. Like, can he make massive money fighting in his own division?
Right, but that's the thing, it's the going back down thing. Like, we've seen it, the best example I think everyone brings up is Roy Jones, right? When he went back down from heavyweight, he went from being, like, untouchable to, like, human. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't like to see that, is what I'm saying. Like, I don't like to see, like, let's just say.
And to his point, what was he going to do? Campaign at heavyweight?
Right.
Absolutely not.
Right.
So you might be putting yourself in a catch-22, and maybe this money, that glory is enough to ride off into the sunset. I don't know Crawford well enough to know how much he really needs this boxing in his life.
Or do you get to the point where you're at that weight? You just say to guys lower divisions, "Come to me and fight up now. We're the same size."
He ain't
essentially.
that kind of draw.
He ain't that kind of draw, right?
You know what I mean? He had to be Canelo style money. That's
Even
why
if
he's done it.
Right. What if he beats Canelo though? If he beats Canelo, can he do that? Has he got that pull?
Well, only time will tell.
Yeah, right.
You know
Yeah.
I guess it depends on how he does it, what the numbers are, how much interest there is in him. You know, only that remains to be seen, because we saw Usyk beat Fury, beat Joshua. He's not a massive draw, even after having beaten those guys collectively 4 times. Yeah. Is he as big a draw as Joshua on his own? No, Joshua can fight anybody and fill any stadium out here, especially in his prime.
Yeah.
Same for Tyson Fury. That's not true of Usyk right now, as he's undisputed heavyweight champion. So, you know, these things are not necessarily predictive of your star power.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? It is exactly that. You get guys that are just, they've got something, don't they, before they've even won a world title. Like, we've all seen guys on the come up, like Ryan Garcia's an example.
Sure.
Right? On the go up of, like, he ain't won a world title yet, but, like, he was...
You can pack him
in. Do you know what I mean? And he's special guy. But can you make a prediction on this, or does that put you in an awkward spot, considering you're around the fight?
No, it's not even about awkwardness. It's about honesty.
Yeah.
I stopped making predictions because I was the first to admit that none of us know.
Yep.
And this prediction game is just snake oil.
Right.
I can tell you, based on what I've seen from each guy before, how they might win if they perform as they did against someone else at a different time. But the reason this is called the sweet science is because there's a scientific element. And the elements that we are looking at for September 13th, neither me nor either any of these pundits that you will encounter between now and then, which will be vast, know what those 2 elements will even be on the night, much less what it will be when they come together. And that is the point. I don't have to feel like I am such a soothsayer for you that I can predict the future, because I do not know, and no one else does either. All I can do is tell you what I do know about the past, and you can make that as predictive as you want about the future. The reason that Allegiant Stadium will be packed and all these will be tuned in across the world is because deep down inside, we all know we don't know.
Right.
And we can only find out on the day. So,
but that might be the best answer I've had to a prediction question before. Most people go, Canelo. You know what I mean? Like, that was a good answer. I'll give you that one. But like, I'm intrigued by this fight because, like, obviously everyone says it now. Like the money, Turkey, El Sheikh. and on, like these fights are happening, right? Whereas I've got confidence over the next few years, fights are going to happen more. But at the same time, we're in a 4-belt era, right? Like, I'd like to see whether it can ever happen and whatnot. I'd like to see a time where it becomes like the old days, or like UFC is now, 1 belt, 1 champion. Like, if Canelo's the super middleweight champion, you know or Usyk's a better example, heavyweight champion of the world. That's the king of the boxing world, right? Whereas, you know, if he splinters the belts, he retires, Dubois gets one, Atama gets one, Joshua gets one, Fury gets one. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're all world champions, but no one's really the world champion.
Well, there's 2 schools of thought on this. The 1 belt, 1 man, 1 champion, well, that pretty much is self-explanatory, right? There's no debate. However, when you get in a system like that, the monopoly on that belt and the way one can gatekeep it becomes very problematic, because then who determines who the mandatories are and who gets a shot? Well, the single champion, that single promoter with that single network, has all the power. And who's looking to give up power or earning potential? No one wants to lose a belt. No one wants to lose the money that comes with the belt. The sanctioning body doesn't want to lose the commission that comes with the belt that is generating the most money. So if you think that scoring is somewhat fishy now or can be corrupt, or if you think that guys who deserve a shot take too long to get a shot before, what do you think will happen when there's only 1 shot to get and it is controlled by a single entity? Now, having 4 belts, sure, you don't have a champion until you do. Right now, I don't think that anybody in their right mind can argue that heavyweight champion of the world is not held by Alexander Usyk. Now, it takes him collecting those belts, and each one of those mandatories that each one of those sanctioning bodies will put forward, yes, he has to deal with. That can be a bit cumbersome, but then he can decide whether or not he wants to defend all those belts or give one up and let other people fight for that belt. I don't know that that's such a bad thing. There are 2 schools of thought, and I can understand how each one works well. The problem is when corruption creeps into either process, it becomes incredibly problematic. So I would say make the process more transparent for all 4 of these sanctioning bodies. Maybe this Ring Magazine belt will have and carry its own specific kind of weight, and they can distinguish themselves maybe from the other 4 belts if there's a transparent process they want to put forward that they consider to be more valid than the other ones, then fine, let them have that argument. But it's up to the fighters which belts they want to attain and defend. That's who decides whether or not there's 1 or 4, or if they're all 4 are worth having or just 1. Up to the fighters. And I'm not so upset that there could be multiple champions as long as the process by which they attain these titles is fair and even-handed. And then I like champions fighting champions for unification, and then ultimately undisputed is like another level. It's like the final boss. I don't mind that at all, as long as these people aren't gatekeeping the belts, which is what we were looking at before the Riyadh season element came into play, and these networks weren't willing to work with each other, and promoters were certainly not willing to work with each other at a championship level, least of all. So, you know, maybe the new environment that is coming will better serve the existing structure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder whether you could do it in sort of a more of a regional fashion, like where you made more prestige of, say, like European champion fighting the African champion, North American champion fighting the South American champion.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And I mean, we have those.
Right.
We have those, but nobody really
No one really cares, right?
People want to be like, you know, regional champions, especially in Europe, like, you know.
European one's a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah,
but the others
they want
are not so prestigious.
Yeah, and they're not really seen as, oh, the European champion fights the African champion, fights
it's not,
the Latin American champion. It could be that way, but it really isn't now. But I wouldn't mind that. That'd be
quite cool,
shout.
right? It'd be, and like you kind of qualify. You've got 3 regional. You can't have regional titles if you're a European fighting an American, but you get what I'm saying. You beat the American champion, that qualifies you for whatever.
And maybe this is something that TKO is looking at. I mean, obviously they're looking at these mid-level fighters and trying to create a different farm system, a different structure by which fighters come to prominence. I'm here for trying all kinds of things as long as it's fair to the athlete and doesn't rob the fan of quality competition. But I've always got to be a little leery of any kind of monopoly and keep an eye on making sure that everybody is treated fairly and their opportunities are not diminished by the process.
It's tough, isn't it? Because like I always like my grandfather was a big boxing fan. He boxed himself when he was younger, and he was old enough to remember like Sonny Liston in his prime, and he always like he saw him once like do an exhibition in London and stuff like that. And he sort of like he had a big view on like being a one champion thing, because he was like when he's met Sonny Liston, he was like king of the world. Do you know what I mean? Like he was the guy. So it was difficult. But then on the flip side of that, like you say, there is corruption and stuff. People won't get shots, will they? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it will be tough.
the Sonny Liston era.
I was going to say that's why I brought up that example, because that was him and Rocky Marciano are the two that people sort of like, you know, there's a lot going on around them.
No, it's absolutely true. And there's always been some level of corruption in this sport. It's been unregulated. You know, again, everything has a pro and a con to it. So it's been a poor man's sport, and that means that it's probably been a street man's business. And so balancing that between the modern era of corporates and, you know, massive networks and the amount of money that is clearly generated by the sport, there's always that tug of war. And where the balance lies shifts from time to time.
Well, I'll tell you what I really like is, like, this is a good example of the fight coming up, is fighters going up in weight to challenge the next champion. I'm a big fan of that, you know. A lot of people sort of shit on it, don't they? But I'm a big fan of that one. I like champions going up one way. I know this is different, but
so you love Jake Paul and Tank Davis.
Hey. I said champion, bro.
Wait for that.
I said champion, bro.
Is Tank Davis not a champion?
Yes, he is. Who's he fighting? Is that a champion?
Massive, going way up in weight. Yeah, right. 70 pounds.
At least.
You heard it here first. Squeeze the neck. Love Jake Paul versus Tank Davis.
I don't think that's a direct quote, but we'll go with it. We'll get there. But that's an interesting one. I was going to bring that up to you later on when we got off the subject a little bit. But like Tank, for me, until he had a bit of a weird performance last time, which we can get into if you want. But like before that, I'm one of them that thinks he's, if not he's one of the very top pound for pound fighters in the world. And like him now doing this, it's like that says to me you're sort of on your way out, no?
He's one of the pound for pound draws.
Right. Oh, you don't think he's one of the pound for pound fighters?
How do we know?
Right.
When has he chosen to fight the best in his division, or, to your point, the weight class above, which is right there in reach?
Fair enough. Yeah, fair point.
Where is the desire to determine that in front of the world? I'm not saying he is not, and I certainly can't proclaim that he is. And that's the true crime. Yeah. That's the real problem with taking this, you know, detour onto Jake Paul, because waiting in the wings are so many of his contemporaries that want to either prove that they are, in fact, the pound for pound best at 35 or 40, or the opportunity for him to stamp his own name in that area in the journal. And there has been no determination of that. There's been only box office numbers. If that's what you're going by, then sure. But if that's not what we're talking about, then these guys have to fight each other to make that claim.
Yep, it's true. But like with the Jake Paul thing now, like before we asked that, like, what do you think of Jake Paul as a boxer and stuff? Because a lot of people shit on him, don't they? But like,
he's a prize fighter,
right?
And you know, he that dabbles in boxing as well as a traditional sport, in the sense that I think he is masterfully woven between sensational bouts like versus Mike Tyson, it's made a shit ton of money, huge visibility, put on the world stage, 2 women fighters as the co-main event, which went on to host their own main event at Madison Square Garden, once again on Netflix. You can't take away his business savvy or his ability to weave in and out of the ridiculous and the traditional. You know, we've got Chavez Jr., you know, a former world champion, a legitimate competitor for where Jake Paul is in his boxing career, especially if you take out the kind of absurd fights and just look at the somewhat legitimate ones. Then, you know, Chavez Jr. is certainly a reasonable opponent. He wins that fight. Not many people pay attention. It was a boring fight. That's Chavez's fault, I think, who didn't really come to win. And then you go out of that and you go to Tank Davis, which is a sensational thing. You can't put it on Paul as to him doing something negative to the sport, because it is bringing more eyeballs. It is bringing huge numbers. The undercards tend to be traditional fights. He's now taken it upon himself to champion women's boxing, which is working better than anyone's ever done it in history. In a short period of time in the sport, he's accomplished that. And so, you know, I'll be watching. I'll likely be covering it.
You'll probably be there. Yeah.
It's like, who can naysay? The onus really is on Tank Davis to whether or not you take that fight, and for the reasons we just discussed. But what is Jake doing? Jake's doing Jake.
Yeah.
And it continues to work. So, you know, who among us can advise Jake Paul on doing better business out of boxing? He's doing great business.
Doing great. I got a lot of respect for him as well.
And at the same time, he's slowly kind of collecting wins in the traditional space
get a world
as
title.
well.
I think he'll get a world title.
At least he'll get a world title shot.
He'll get a version of it. He'll get like he'll get a version of it in a vacant title fight or something. I think that happened. But like, he's talking about fighting Anthony Joshua before that. Was that complete just like publicity, do you think? Or do you think there's anything in that?
Listen, I honestly believe that the guy would have done it if he could have got it done. Mm-hmm. I don't think he was just bullshitting, because remember, before that it was Canelo.
Right.
And they had this fight signed. I believe that he would do these fights if they could get done. The Canelo thing got ripped away from him. DAZN prevented the Joshua thing. Neither one of those preventions was in his hands. It's not like he was the one saying, oh, at the 11th hour, I don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. And then, yes, in both cases, it set him up nice for exactly tailor-made fights. So, again, I can only say I don't think.
Yeah.
But maybe he goes in knowing, oh, this network's not going to let that happen. Or he goes in, knowing that Turkey's going to try to pull Canelo. And that's like who wins in that? That's Canelo, right? That makes Turkey come up with more money for Canelo. Maybe if Canelo then kicks some money back to Jake Paul, you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
Business is business. I can't rule anything out.
No, well, the thing with the Joshua one, that's one, like, if Joshua takes that a little bit seriously, this like a huge, like, that could go really wrong. You know what I mean? I know I'm stating the obvious, but that could be more than just like he gets knocked out, couldn't it? That could be like a serious fucking like mark on the sport here.
It could be, but I mean, can you imagine how much money that is? And the fact that I truly believe that Jake believes that he could probably survive, if not somehow win that fight in his mind. I mean, listen, it only requires that he believes it. It's not a lie if you believe it.
It's true.
If he believes it, then that gets him into the ring.
That's it, yeah.
And nobody that can make that money is turning down that money.
No.
I mean, that fight is much bigger than Tank.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to be going and expecting exactly what you said. So you remember what we were saying when it was Ngannou and Fury, and I realized that Ngannou is a world champion in other combat sport, blah, 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 but it was his first ever boxing match.
And I think he won, by the way. I think he won, by the way. We can argue that, but I think he won.
So here you have it on Squeeze the Neck. He believes that Francis Ngannou is the world heavyweight champion of boxing. And that the greatest show on earth is Tank Davis versus Jake Paul. Breaking news.
Direct quotes they are, exactly, verbatim. But obviously, like, he fought Joshua next, didn't he? So, like, fighting,
and
like,
then
that's what you get.
Spark out, right.
And it's almost, here's the thing, I think the second fight is harder for Ngannou, right? I mean, that might be obvious in some ways, but I think some people might disagree. But the reason I say that is because the first time, it's like the novelty effect, right? Fury turned up. I know we've mentioned earlier his body never looks great, but it looked particularly bad for that one. Ngannou comes in there, he was a specimen and a half. Do you know what I mean? He was a complete freak athlete. Gets in there, as you said, he's a world champion in someone else's sport, massive power, on and on and on and on and on. So it's like the shock factor, innit? Whereas Joshua's sort of almost prepared for him properly. Treated it like a
Joshua's
proper
like, that ain't happening to me.
No.
He's training for a monster.
Proper fight, yeah.
A proper, like, a contender. Somebody who might have just beaten the heavyweight champion of the world is what Joshua was training for. And he caught him, I mean, with the simplest fucking setup.
Yeah.
I mean, my God. He set a mousetrap for him that's the size of this table.
Right.
Like, I mean, so that gave us all in the boxing world a little bit of satisfaction.
Yeah, right.
Like, okay, it's not like, oh, Ngannou has a soft chin or Joshua is such a massive puncher. While he is, it's just that, oh, you don't even know the basics of you fell for the oldest trick in the book.
But that's how it should go, right? That's how it should go.
Which is why we could all sleep that night.
Exactly.
And none of us had a fucking a restful night's sleep from the time that Ngannou knocked down knocked down Fury to the time he got in the ring with Joshua. No true pugilist scientist had a good night's rest.
Could you imagine it went the other way?
Those days.
If Ngannou did that to Joshua? Could you imagine if he caught him with a flush
what do
shot?
You mean? After having done that to Fury?
After having done it to Fury, and the fight was
the world would be a very different place right now.
Boxing would look
we wouldn't even
crazy.
have Donald Trump. We'd have Dana White as president. We wouldn't have to go through Trump. It'd be Dana.
Exactly. But it's a funny world. And I mean, there is an intrigue with the Tank Davis versus Jake Paul. That's not for me, I got to be honest. I'm one of them that go, no, don't get me wrong, I'm going to be watching it 100%. And I will be like into it when it's happening. Do you know what I mean? But when it gets signed, the part of me just goes, man, like, I'd rather see other things. I'd rather see Jake Paul fight, I don't know, like, who would be a good fight for Jake Paul? Say, a mid-tier cruiserweight, you know, like someone who we know. I can't think of a name off the top of my head, but you know, like someone we know who's not that dangerous. I guess he already did it somewhat.
Maybe Badu Jack.
Badu Jack.
Who's a world champion right
bit
now.
Older, yeah.
You know what I mean? Who's a now see, I think whatever happens with this Tank fight, I think after that we see him if
Do you think that's the
challenge something like that where maybe he picks. And there's no disrespect to Badu Jack. He's a world champion. His last fight, which is how he reclaimed or defended the title that was stripped from him. It's a long story, but essentially, it's a very close fight, arguable outcome. He's aging. He hasn't fought since. Maybe you catch a guy like that.
Is he a 3-weight champion or did he miss light heavyweight? He was super middleweight world champion, wasn't he? Now he's cruiserweight.
Badu.
Yeah. Did he get the light heavyweight belt or did he miss that one? I know he fought a light heavyweight. I can't remember if he got the belt or not. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, right?
But yeah, but I can see Jake Paul finding that opportunity. Like, you know, there was a conversation that it might be Zerto. I don't think that's the way it should go.
Yeah, no. Name value,
that's a great idea.
Yeah, nothing, yeah.
But yeah, you know, he might just work his way into a title shot, which he's always been his stated goal. And thus far, you know, this guy hasn't been denied anything that he's sought. So I don't know why that would be the first thing. He might just get there.
Do you know who I could see him fighting next would be Tommy Fury? Because obviously he's got the loss, right? But Tommy Fury's not that active. Yeah. I feel like he could see that as a chance to get in there.
This is what he's too clever for that as well. I think he goes after a world title, and if somehow he does manage to become a champion, then he rematches Fury as champion.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the money.
That's the money. That's the money. Yeah, money make the world go. What do you think happens in this Tank fight? Is it a fight? It's an exhibition, I think.
It's an exhibition,
right?
Yeah.
But what happens there? Do they sort of dance around and play nice, or what?
I don't think either one of them is interested in losing. So, I would imagine that whatever we see will be genuine. I can't imagine that Tank would take any kind of dive or be any kind of soft, you know. But also, he's got all the disadvantages with the exception of experience, of course.
Yeah.
You know, so he's going there and fucking let loose. Of course, I believe we've seen this before, essentially when we saw Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather. You know what I mean? So the blueprint's there.
Yeah.
They know how to get it done. Tank, while a knockout artist at 135, is going to have trouble hurting even a much lesser experienced Jake Paul at 185?
I think it's 85, isn't it? Yeah, it's 85.
You know what I mean? Like, okay. So it's not like Jake, again, it's not just stumbled in off the street. He knows his defense now. He's able to tie guys up. He could, you know, mount some kind of offense. It's going to be weird. Yeah. It's going to look odd. The same as it was with Mayweather and Paul.
Well, I wonder what he comes in at, Tank. What do you think he'll weigh fight night? It's hard to gauge,
he's going to be comfortable.
Yeah.
He ain't going to be 185 fucking pounds.
I don't want him to be too comfortable, though. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't want him coming in at 175 looking tubby.
That ain't comfortable.
That ain't comfortable,
he's a tiny, like, come on. This, you know what I mean?
Because how big's Tank? What, 5'5" is he? Something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah, somewhere around there, yeah. I mean, savage. Got one of the biggest heads in the sport, too. He's got a head of a heavyweight, isn't he? But he's a lightweight guy. I love Tank. I'm a big Tank fan. So it's like, you know, it's a tricky one. I find this one tough. And the reason I find this one tough is, like you said, it's a bit like 185 pounds with some experience who's big and in shape. It's not just 185 pound. Of course, he can knock out a 185 pound man, but someone that in shape who's ready for it. He can stay safe enough,
and Tank's speed would be his advantage. So if you put on a bunch of weight, you fuck that speed up. And by the time that fight happens, Tank will have been out of the ring for a considerable amount of time. And, you know, again, his experience would suggest that even a rusty Tank is a hell of a lot sharper than a sharp Jake Paul.
You'd think so.
But with that said, and that size difference, and hopefully he's focused because there's other shit going on in his life, anything can happen. I don't know, and I kind of want to find out what that is going to be.
You've talked me into it. I'll wade into it.
You talked me into it. It's the fight you're most waiting to see.
Squeeze the neck endorsed.
You love the weight division jump. Like
I said one.
I was on the fence, and I was like, oh, Squeeze the Neck really loves this fight. Maybe I should take another look at it.
Squeeze the Neck don't know nothing. You heard it here first. How about that? But like moving forward, like with the heavyweight division and stuff like that, like we've obviously got Usyk at the top of the tree. He looks great. He looks like he's getting better. Like that fight night that we was at recently. I mean, that's the first time I've spoke about this on here before. I think I saw him years ago fight my club mate Joe Joyce, but I can't remember whether I was there in person or not. I think I was, but I can't remember. It doesn't matter. Essentially, that's the first time I've seen him fight live, right? And he was like, he's great, right? The guy is just like magic, but he's not going to last forever. So like when his wave goes, we've got a superstar in the UK, I think, waiting for it. But like, what do you see for the heavyweight division? Does it sort of go through?
Who's the superstar in the UK?
Moses Atama.
Oh.
No? Oh, no, you rolled your eyes. Moses. Moses.
I mean, he is a rising star.
Uh-huh.
I think to call Moses Atama a superstar.
In the making, I said. You put words in my mouth today,
Did you?
bro. Jesus Christ. I said in the making.
I thought you said waiting. You said in the making.
In the making or in
I
waiting.
said,
I don't know. One of the two.
Well, those are two very
Tomato,
different
tomato.
things.
Come on, bro. Hey.
Tomato ketchup. I mean.
Tomato mustard. Yeah. You know what I mean.
It's the same root, but you've got a very different product. Well, yes, I hope I would want as many superstars in the world of boxing as we can get, and it is yet to be seen.
Doesn't sound like you're so high on Moses.
I'm not so high on the praise
Okay.
being so high.
Uh-huh.
Let's let him go through the gears. Let's let him work from level to level. Incredible performance out against Dillian White. Sure, all right. That's in keeping with the narrative. Let's keep going. Let's fight some young, hungry fighters.
Who would
Let's
you go?
fight
Where would you go?
For Atama?
Yeah.
I would like maybe a Jared Anderson.
Okay. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Michael Hunter.
Michael Hunter, sure. I wouldn't get as excited about that fight. And Jared, because it's like, I want to find out if Jared still has it in him. If, I would be curious to see what that fight looks like.
How old is he? He's still very young, right?
He's still very young, yeah.
Mid-20s, somewhere around there?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that fight. Even maybe a Zhilei Zhang, which is
Interesting fight.
which would be a difficult puzzle for him to work out. Fights like somewhere in that space. People are saying Hrgovic. I don't think he's even ready for Hrgovic.
Really?
I think that's a step past the step
you.
I want him to take next.
I got you.
Yeah. Maybe an Adelaide.
Yeah, okay.
That would be a tremendous.
Yeah.
I'd be excited for that fight. In that space.
Yeah, I got you. You're not high on the Usyk fight then. Don't give him to Usyk straight away.
That's nonsense.
Turkey says
Pure
Usyk next.
Nonsense. Absolutely an outrageous matchup. And I don't think Frank Warren is going to cotton to
Moses,
that.
hey, don't shoot the messenger, Moses.
Don't shoot. Don't shoot the guys trying to take you to the slaughterhouse. Whether you can win that fight or not, it's a terrible time to have that fight in your career. Because if you somehow do win that fight, and honestly, I wouldn't predict him to do so. If he did win the fight, and he all of a sudden becomes undisputed heavyweight champion, he's probably got to fight Usyk again. And then you've got to retain all those belts at this. You're not doing yourself any favors.
Yeah.
Even if you could beat Usyk,
Right.
putting yourself at the top of that hill right then, having to now fight all the guys coming up that are mandatories that have a right to expect a shot. It's a terrible way to guide your career and a terrible way to build yourself as a superstar. If you go through the gears and beat your contemporaries and beat these up-and-comers and put away some of the old guys in the process, that's how you build a pay-per-view star. That's how you build a global superstar for real. And not, a guy that is just being spoken of as such, but can't sell the tickets that are commiserate with that title. You do that by going through the gears. Yes, Mike Tyson was the youngest heavyweight champion ever crowned, but at the same time, though, from that point, and again, we were living in a different era, so there were very few elements in control of the sport then as well, and he took the old guard out and was fighting the contemporaries, knocking them out in that fashion, which is Mike Tyson, wasn't a superstar because he became the youngest heavyweight champion. It was because progressing beyond that was him knocking these guys out and going through the gears. So that is an anomaly.
Yeah.
That's not usually how it happens. And I think the heavyweight division is really impacted with good and upcoming talent. Be the guys that beat all the guys. And then I'd love for Usyk to retire and let those belts scatter. And then if it is going to be Atama, whoever the next real king of the hill is going to be, go around and collect them. That is what I like to see. That's why there's an argument for these 4 belt eras.
Yep.
Because I like seeing guys getting around and fighting each other to collect them.
That's interesting. It's a good way of looking at it because that's one of the first things Tyson, you mentioned when he won the title. The first thing he said, you remember, like when he got on the mic, first thing he said when they asked him what's next, he said, "Unify the titles." And there is something to that, isn't there?
I need a Thanos.
Yeah.
You gotta collect all the rings.
I'm a grown man, so I don't know what you just said, but collect all the rings, yeah.
The fact that you knew you needed to be a grown man to understand what I just said means you understood exactly what I just said.
Been exposed today on my podcast, don't I, guys? But like stepping forward with like heavyweight division and stuff like that, I guess what I'm looking at is it going to end up in Saudi Arabia all the time to make the big fights happen, or will this?
That's where they want it.
Yeah.
Unless somebody else is going to step in with these coins.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but look, we're going to Vegas for arguably the biggest fight of the year, so it's not always going to be.
I'm not.
Saudi.
I wish I was. I'm not. But you know.
By we, I mean me and your listeners. You're going to leave you behind.
I'll be watching the TV, waving the flag.
Yeah, you got to save up your money for Atlanta.
Hey.
So you can get to Tank and Jake. You can't do everything, you know. So
you can try.
And then we'll have Eubank and Bid in November here in London. So no, it's not always going to be in Saudi, but it's always going to be Saudi money, it appears.
Well, I tell you what, I like the idea of having like a venue. I mean, I guess we got it in Vegas anyway, but like a hub where like, you know, like a historical place where fights go. I think it's like back in the day, like Muhammad Ali's era, it was Madison Square Garden. That's kind of shifted, isn't it? I mean, still holds the esteem, but the big fights happen in Vegas now, right? I think that could happen in Saudi now.
I think the big fights happen, in Saudi and London now.
Yeah.
I mean, Vegas and in the Garden are kind of one-offs here and there, but the hubs, really, I mean, still London because of Wembley and, you know, yes.
Don't say the other stadium. The other stadium's not welcome on the show.
You heard
no.
Stop myself,
no.
right?
You know better. You know better.
And then I just moved on. Everybody knows what we didn't say. And then, then Saudi. So between London and Saudi, or Riyadh, I guess, to be specific, that really is where boxing lives these days.
Have you been out there for fights? I take it. Obviously, you've been
I've been out there for every
times,
fight
right?
since Joshua Ruiz too.
Have you? Right, yeah. Because I've not been there yet, but like that seems like the people that I know that have been just fans, obviously not covering it like yourself. They all seem to have like a.
I'm surprised you weren't there to watch the heavyweight champion of the world, Francis Ngannou, be crowned.
Wow. I had a sore foot that day. I had to sit down. I had to stay at home.
The two most important fights in the sport. You've
Jake
already
Paul,
missed one of
Francis
them.
Ngannou. So Jake Paul fights Francis, life's
There we
complete.
go.
Is that what we're saying?
That's it.
It's done. I don't need to watch it anymore. Are you a UFC fan at all, or are you strictly a boxing guy?
I watch MMA. I will go to
do?
any UFC fight when I am able, for sure. The problem is that there's obviously so many nights on which they land on the same Saturday.
Right.
And it's difficult for me to follow MMA or the UFC as an organization because I'm so steeped in boxing and I don't cover it. So there's no money in it for me, to be fair. So I'm not following it. I don't really follow any sport outside of boxing and women's tennis.
Women's tennis. We'll come back to that one. Hey, I might have something I've leveraged the door to get myself back in on this one before I get slaughtered all day. But like, what's your background yourself, mate? Was you a boxer back in the day?
Nah, I've always been a talker. I can talk myself in
Is that
and out of any fight. I'm the chatter world champion.
I got you. Mate, we get you a slap fight. If you Dana White slap
No,
fight.
no contact. No
None
contact.
of that?
I'll slap that microphone down on the table. That's about it.
Yeah, I got you.
I do a mic drop, but I ain't dropping no body.
And what brought you
Except
into
that I
boxing?
have been trained in the gyms. Like I
Right.
box for sport, and I'm not
Right.
at all disamusing myself of being like a competitive combat athlete. It's just in the gym. I'll spar with people I know, and I will train tirelessly as if there were some fight on my horizon. But unless that fight takes place at the bar or the fucking underground tube station, it ain't happening. And if that happens, we ain't boxing.
We could get a Misfits, me and you. Like, that could get some views.
No,
You've
listen.
like annihilated me with Jake Paul, Francis, Tank,
Listen,
weight divisions.
We can get a missus, step her aside, and have a fit. But that's about it.
We could sell out the O2, bro.
That's my misfit. Excuse me, missus. and have
the
a
way.
fit.
Hold the bag. Out the way,
Yeah. This is all self-defense and shutting the fight down quickly.
Yeah, I got
so
you.
Even if you catch me in the street and decide you want to have a tussle, don't expect a whole bunch of fucking jabbing and left hooks and shit. I'm gonna hit you with a brick. I'll cut you with a bottle. You know what I mean? I'll flip a car if possible. I am not at all a gentleman in the sport of combat.
All I want to say is any security letting this man into an arena, check his pockets, he's got bricks, he's got knuckle dusters.
He's got whatever's necessary.
Hey, the man's an animal.
I will sweep the leg. You got a problem with that?
I mean, I don't know if anyone's seen the little clip of me and you when I say squeeze the neck and he says boom. I saw anger in those eyes, bro.
That's it.
I saw something
I
there.
push it down. They tell me in therapy that's good to just bottle it up. So that's
well, there you go.
what
They
I
won't let
do.
me into therapy. That sounds too crazy. But we'll come to that another time. But like with this, like Jake Paul. Sorry, the reason I bring up Jake Paul, I was going to say misfits. Jake Paul, I see as different from the rest. You know, like the KSIs and stuff like this. I see him as like, you know, he's doing it different, right? And level of how he can fight is higher than the others. Like, have you got much interest in the misfits, or are you not into that game?
Yeah, I like both approaches, really. I think Jake Paul has clearly, at this point, made a lot more of a spectacle and money at it than what KSI has done as a misfits boxer. However, that prime drink, like, listen, it's all promotion, really. Both sides. It's all about who can grab the most eyeballs, make the most money, and live the dream that they imagine for themselves, right? So I don't know if KSI really has the desire, the passion, the dream to be a champion in boxing, or if it was just something he was doing because that was a cool thing to do and he wants to, you know, just be a cultural icon who can sell anything and a personality that people care about whatever he puts online. And he is that. And this drink that him and Logan Paul have come up with is astronomical numbers. All the kids are drinking it, and it's a fucking thing for sure that they came up with. And I think that probably makes KSI very happy. I think he would be good to step back from being in the ring and really maybe become the Vince McMahon of crossover boxing. I think Jake Paul has a more traditional concept in mind. He wants to be the Don King of women's boxing, which I think he's on as well as the way to doing. So there might be just enough room in this town for everybody.
Right.
And their dreams and aspirations differ enough to where they might not even butt heads at it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And listen, like you touched on there, like the businesses they've got, the money they're making. These people ain't silly, are they? Do you know what I mean? These are clever people. KSI's in the gym, he's sparring people. He knows he's not going to get in there with like the top level fighters and be that, is he? Do you know what I mean? So
or even if he wants to, I don't know if that he wants that bad enough, you know?
Right.
But I do think that obviously he's got a marketing mind. He's got a whole collection of fighters who want to fight under his banner. And if maybe he just focused on that, I think he could blow Misfits up much bigger than what it is now.
Mm-hmm. Because as we sit here now, this will come out a little bit after, obviously, but they're fighting tonight, and they've got. I don't know if KSI is fighting himself, but there's a show on in there. Tony Ferguson,
is that the
Darren Till, Luke
yeah.
Rockhold fights tonight.
Sure.
So
okay.
it's all kicking off, man. The press conference, I had to turn it off, to be honest, because the press conference was a bit sort of too gimmicky and a bit too WWF, like teenagers shouting at each other. You know?
Sure.
But I mean, I'm sure the fights will be good. There's some legit fighters on there fighting boxing, isn't there? You know, it'd be interesting to see what goes on. I know you watch some UFC and stuff. Touching it quickly, Tony Ferguson's fighting. He's coming off an 8-fight losing streak. I don't know this Salt Pappy guy. Apparently he can box a bit. Do you know much about him?
Salt Pappy, I love him.
Oh,
man.
you do? I don't know anything about him. I've heard about him recently.
He's just a guy, at least, you know, when I've encountered him, that is the most unassuming of all these guys. He's a little pudgy. He's, you know, slimmed down since his debut for sure. But when he came on the scene, he was, you know, pudgy, arguably fat, short. He was wearing glasses. He's Asian, you know, Filipino to be exact. Loved Manny Pacquiao, icon of his life was Manny Pacquiao. And obviously I have a long history with Manny Pacquiao, so I got to send Pacquiao messages from Salt Pappy, which thrilled Salt Pappy, and he was winning fights. Nobody was ever expecting him to win. He had a great ride. I honestly am not paying that close attention to it now, so I don't know where he is with this whole journey, but he's a fun guy. I think he's a sincere guy. He put in the work. He got some super big upset wins, and apparently he's still in it. So, you know, I'm rooting for him. I don't even know who he's fighting tonight, but I hope he wins it.
He's fighting Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, all right. Well, I want him to beat Tony Ferguson.
How dare you? You're out of order, bro. This is a disgrace. This is disgusting. I shouldn't have come here today. But no, what's his background? Was he like a YouTube influencer or something along those lines?
Of course. Yeah,
he's one of them guys.
For sure.
So good luck to him. He's got Savage in front of him tonight. But like going forward, mate, what's going on with you? You're going to be like the voice of boxing as we go forward?
I would like to think I'm the voice of record. I will continue to make the interviews that I believe the fans deserve to hear, ask the questions that sometimes are uncomfortable but necessary to get to the truth. And that is my charge. You know, hopefully I meet it and can continue to elevate my own standard. And that's a challenge every time out. I'm very much involved in fights on the continent of Africa. I just returned from the Congo. They're looking to put on a anniversary fight for the Ali Foreman Rumble in the Jungle, which happened in Zaire. At that time, it was Zaire. Now it's the Democratic Republic of Congo. That happened in 1974, so we're looking at 51 years out in October. And there's massive push behind that fight from the government, the people. You're hearing now fighters like Anthony Joshua, certainly Martin Bacoli, wanting to fight in Africa. Bakoli is Congolese, so he wants to be on that card. Joshua is of Nigerian descent. He wants to fight on the continent. There's a lot happening in Africa, and I'm very invested in it and looking to promote it and continue to make things happen. So in Ghana, there'll be a massive show in December. We just had a show there a couple months back that was wildly successful. So, yeah, that's the thing that really has my passion right now. And then, of course, the fights that we all know about that are coming down the line are all incredibly interesting. So, yeah, it's going to be a good end to 2025.
Man, big stuff all over the world, literally all over the world. You're
That's
in
right.
Africa, America, here, everything. But like with the fighters you've been around, obviously the famous one with you and Deontay Wilder. Like, have you had some like hard interviews with people where you sort of touched on things and fighters ain't liked it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And if that's not happening, you're probably not doing your job very well.
Yeah.
This is part of the game, and it is a balancing act on a tightrope. You know, you want to have a good rapport with the fighters. They need to respect you. You have to respect them. You also want access from the promoters and the networks, and they have a narrative that they would like put forward and an agenda to promote the fight, to be sure. And everybody that can get, their nose crossed can cause you problems. Either a fighter can decide that they don't want to talk to you, or a promoter can deny you access, or a network can, prevent you from covering their event. But ultimately, your job as a journalist is to deliver for the fans and to get at, a lot of times, what is underneath the surface or even being hidden behind the door. And if you're not willing to push on those doors and lift up the hood underneath the surface, then you're not doing anybody a real service. Mm-hmm. And so I am always conscious of that and try to continue to meet that standard without getting myself banned again.
Again. Oh, well, that's for episode 2, guys. Stay tuned. No, but like one thing I say, I know we've had some banter on here today and stuff like that, but one of the things, when we first met, we was at the fight week of Usyk Dubois, right? So like, I bumped into you the first day, very warm sort of hello. Next day I met you, I don't know if you remember this, you might big time me now, I'm giving him credit. But we shook hands, it gave me a hug, it was like long lost friends, you know what I'm saying? So like, there's a warm, like, that's got to get you, personality is what I'm saying, it's got to get you through a lot of doors with fighters, right? Because I can't imagine, from knowing you in the short time I've known you, that anyone's going to dislike you, really. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah. Again, though, when you start pushing on sore spots and pulling off scabs,
right.
they can get a
bit prickly.
They can get a little prickly. But they'll respect that
too,
if you do it in a professional way and you're respectful as well. So I'm not being nasty or gotcha or trying to embarrass them. You have to know where that is, and that's come from years and years and years of being in this profession. Right. So, like anyone else, I've tripped up at times or had these moments or moments I would have liked back, and some that were incredible, and I wouldn't trade them for the world, but it's all part of the mix. And I think because I've been doing this so long, and you can, if nothing else, see that sincerity on me and that desire to deliver something of quality, that they'll have a bit of grace with me, I'll have a bit with them, and we can work together to be honest about whatever moment we're in and what's happening in that time.
Because fighters as well, like, things fester on their brain, don't they? Like, you might say like an off comment, like about Jake Paul, Tank Davis, like you did to me earlier. I'm cool with it now, but I might go home and it might tick on my brain, and next time I see you, it might be but you know what I'm saying? Like, it does happen, doesn't it? You're like,
but I get at the truth of what you really believe, right? And then I've told your audience what you really believe. But, hey, and now you might blame me for that later, but deep down inside, you know that finally you got that off your chest.
So you say, like,
finally
deep down,
to say the thing that you really wanted to say.
It's more about me. Deep down, I hate myself, is what you're telling me.
Listen, no, I am a conduit for your true spirit.
Is this therapy now? Is that what
you were hiding it earlier, but now you feel you're lighter. I'm sure on your shoulders it feels like a weight has been lifted, and for that you are welcome.
Well, episode 2, I might bring us fucking singlet, and we'll figure this out as we go. But one thing I wanted to get into you before we finish up is like, you've been, obviously, you said, around the fight game a long time. It's like historical fighters. And I'm not talking necessarily, we can go into it, but I'm not necessarily sort of like your Rocky Marcianos that were before your time. I'm talking about people that, like your Mike Tysons, when they were in their peak, you would have seen. They were in your lifetime. Things like that. So, like, the one that comes to mind immediately for me, I've got a fascination with, like, the Mike Tyson of the late 80s. It was before I was born. But that, to me, is like, he was my hero in boxing, sort of growing up, even though his prime was before me.
Do you remember where you were when you found out that Mike Tyson had been beaten by Buster Douglas?
Well, it was before I was born, bro.
So you don't remember?
No.
And this guy calls himself a professional.
I can't help it. The year I was born.
Honestly.
What do you want me to do?
I mean, Come on.
I mean, I should have been born earlier. I'm going to ring my
a
mum
simple
after.
no would suffice. I don't want to hear any of your excuses.
I think that's a pretty fair excuse, no?
You would.
Well, I remember a little bit. How about that? Fuck's sake. Carry on.
No, it's one of those moments that stopped the world, you know, except that nobody was watching. So, you know, I would imagine it was like a whisper campaign. What did you hear? Did you do? You know, there's no social media. There's no checking your phone to find out what's real. And then someone just told you, or you did see it on the news or something like this. It's a different time, and I don't think is a fight he ever recovered from.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Never got back.
Right. Because for anyone who doesn't know, he'd changed trainers at that point, right? He'd been sort of sucked, I don't want to say sucked in, but you know what I mean? He'd been taken under the wing of sort of Don King at this point. He wasn't with the people he'd been with since he was young and whatever.
It was a perfect storm.
Perfect storm. There was the famous video of him in the corner with the glove on his head when they'd like to filled up with water because they didn't have the compression, all that kind of stuff, and it was a disaster. But the reason I bring him up, because I want to know what it was like before that, like when he was in his pomp, because as I say, that to me was like, it's almost like an eerie thing to look back on, isn't it? You know what I mean? Because he does sort of stand out from the rest. Do you see where I'm coming from with that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it's a different era. I don't know, you know, I wasn't that old myself, to be fair. So,
About
you know,
what, 34, 35?
Like 34, 35 days old, yeah. And so I have a better memory than you, though. That's the thing. You know, I was sharp right out the room.
Outrageous comments being thrown around today.
Yeah. You know, it was a different time, and I think that Tyson thought to be so invincible that it ended up obviously being his Achilles heel, and nobody saw it coming as easy as it is in hindsight to see the writing on the wall. You know?
Yeah. Who was your favourite fighter when you was young, growing up? Who was the guy at the time?
I don't think my favorite fighter was really a fighter of the time, but boxing is kind of one of those sports where it gets passed down from the generation before you. Mm-hmm. So you'll see, it's not like you'll see old boxing matches, like you're not American, but in American football, for instance, you get your team, and probably in, you know, European football as well, you'll get your team from your dad's team, or your uncle's team, or your
100%.
Grandpa's team.
Oh, we're coming on to that at the end. We're coming on to that at the end, don't worry.
You'll get your fighters from your dad's fighter, or your grandpa's fighter. And so my grandfather was, I think it was Marvelous Marvin Hagler, you know, and then I grew into a Sugar Ray Leonard. But these guys, that wasn't their era when I was coming. I would see the old footage, and they were showing like on a Wide World of Sports replays and stuff like this. And you could see these old fights, and those were the personalities and fights that really got my attention. I mean, nobody that was watching the sport during the time of Mike Tyson was going to evade being a Tyson fan. He was just too big, you know, a character. But at that time, you know, I'm also still at that point, I'm still in like professional wrestling, and I'm fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair and Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know?
Yeah. Well, I think everyone had a WWF. Well, it was a WWF stage when I was a young kid, right? Like, before they butchered the name. But that's for another day.
You know why that happened?
Yeah, it was the World Wildlife Foundation.
That's
am I right?
it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, knowledge, son. I'm back in the tree. You see that? Look, he wrote me off before.
Remember when he said he didn't remember before?
Huh? What'd you say? I forgot.
Remember how he said he didn't remember?
I forgot what you said there. I was talking nonsense.
Just saying.
Well, you see, you touched on it a little bit there. The last question I always ask, which we might as well get into now. But you said about American football and European football. We call it football because we kick it with our foot. It clues in the name. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why Americans call it football. Where does it come from? I'm not trying to be funny. That's a genuine question.
Have you ever seen the game start? You've never seen an American football game start?
No, I can't think of it.
They put the football,
the ball, the egg,
on a tee, and a lad comes along and kicks it.
Really? And that's why they call it football? I sound really stupid now. We might have to cut this bit out. We'll see.
After you score a touchdown, they put the ball, the guy catches it, puts it up on his own man-made tee. The guy kicks it through the goalpost.
Really? Okay.
Not goalposts that, while they look like a standing fork, if you were to put it on its side, not that dissimilar to a European football goal.
Football
You got to
goal.
kick it through this.
Don't have to say European, bro.
Straight up.
Football. It's just a football goal.
Well, I mean, it's European football.
I don't know about
you
that.
what I mean?
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
You
Remember
know?
tomato mustard?
Because really you could call it kickball, which we do have in America, which is much more similar to what you do.
Kickball. That sounds like you should be on a special bus. We need kickball. Come on, bro.
I mean, have you ever seen one of these guys flop? Maybe they should be
Well,
on a
but
special
hey,
bus.
400 grand a week. Hey, they can do what they like.
Oh my God.
Are you a football fan back home? American football, I mean.
Nah, I don't care.
No, you're not. You're not a fan.
I'm only defending it because, why not?
What?
But
What's
I
your,
don't care.
what's your sport? Is it basketball, baseball, one of the American sports? Come on, bro. No?
Women's tennis.
Women's tennis. Is that genuine? That wasn't a wind-up at the start.
No,
So
not
no
at all.
baseball team. I'm a diehard.
I don't care.
I'm a diehard San Francisco Giants fan. Just putting it out there.
Okay.
Just putting it out there.
Ugh.
Just putting it out there.
All right, calm down.
Calm down.
Christ. I am from Oakland.
Okay.
So you're disgusting.
Oh, really? That's close
I mean,
enough, right? That's like over there, Oakland.
Have you ever heard of Oakland Athletics?
Never heard of them.
Yeah, see, only somebody.
I never heard of
like
them.
a
I never-
fucking.
Never heard of them.
The Giants. Why? What do you even know about? Why would you do that?
Well, there might have been a girl involved at the time, but we gloss over that part.
She
No,
was
we gloss
big,
over the part.
And you had a thing for Giants.
No. I was in America.
She
I was in America.
massive.
I was in.
This girl.
See, I was in California, and I ended up going to a couple. There's nothing real exciting about it. I ended up going to a couple of Giants games, and they won the World Series that year. So I'm like, I'm on
okay.
it. Did the
It
story?
was one of the years that they cheated.
I don't know, bro.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
they hit the ball with a stick. What do you want to know?
Yeah,
What do you want to know? How'd you cheat in that sport? How'd you cheat? That's all right.
You remember? You don't. Of course, you don't remember
Good.
anything that's
Good.
inconvenient.
Yeah, who? What are you talking about? Huh? Where are we? Yeah. No, I mean, listen. People have said it before. If you're in baseball, I want you on steroids. I want you hitting that ball harder. You ever been to a baseball game? You,
You
want
weren't
to punch
cheating, you
yourself in the
weren't
head.
trying.
You know what I mean? Been to a baseball game, you want to like punch yourself in the head. It's boring. Anyways,
yeah.
moving on to the final question of the day, mate. The most important one. Now, this is a legit question. Forget baseball. Which football team do you support? And there is a correct
What
answer
do you
to
mean
this.
by football team?
I mean football. You know, kick the ball with the foot. I mean,
Kickball.
you kind of butchered that. Kickball, if you want.
Arsenal.
Soccer. No. Stop. You're South London, bro. What are you talking about, Arsenal?
It's the only matches I've ever been to. I go there
We'll doctor that.
almost every. I've been to so many matches because Frank Warren has a box there.
Oh, no.
And I go
oh,
with Frank,
no.
and I've been to countless matches, and I'm an Arsenal all the way.
Well, but how about if I get your ticket, you come with me to the real stadium
You have a
and we
box?
change your team? I don't have a box, bro.
Will they be serving
I don't have
dinner?
a box. They won't be serving dinner, bro.
This is-
I'll get you a hot
Do you
dog.
guys have a waitress?
I'll buy you a hot dog. What do you want to know?
I mean, honestly.
Well, there's a good-looking girl that sits
is
about
there
5 seats that
Do
way.
you
What
even
do wanna
have
know?
a couch?
Oh, come on, bro. I'll get you a flip-down seat and a hot dog, and you can stare at Jane, who sits six seats down.
This is a good one, though. What team am I meant to be cheering for sitting here in South London?
Who do you think is supposed to be in
I
this
don't even
area?
know, honestly.
Seriously, they play in
Fucking, I don't
blue.
know. It's not.
They might be
the
world
Palace,
champions.
those
They might be
Palace
world
people, is it?
champions. They might be world
Crystal Palace?
They ain't world champions, bro. Who's world champions? Come on. Come on.
Not Chelsea.
Hey, my guy, top man. Don't leave me hanging.
I cannot.
Don't leave me hanging here, son.
I cannot. This might be seen by anybody. I'm not fucking
But
up my
millions
seat
are
in
going to
a
watch
box.
this. Yeah. I'll get a selfie with us at
Chelsea?
Chelsea soon. No, you can't support Chelsea? No? Can't bring you over?
I mean, I'll go, but
Good.
I gotta wear my A for the Gunners.
Oh, you can't do that. You won't make it out, bro. You won't make it out.
I thought you knew how to fight.
I don't know him.
I told you I could get us into fights. You gotta get us out of the arena.
Not Stamford Bridge in an Arsenal shirt. I ain't that good, bro. What do you think I am? But, mate, listen, this has been great. Hopefully we'll do this again
Don't
at
cut
some
that
point.
into the part where you said Chelsea either.
Who?
Don't that handshake. Don't
I
try
forgot.
to fucking cut
What do you
that
mean?
in.
I don't understand.
Yeah,
What
I know,
bit?
yeah,
That
I
didn't
know your
happen.
little
What are you talking
iPhone
about? We
tricks.
just ding, ding, ding. Yeah. But as I say, mate, I appreciate you. I'm sure we'll be in touch over the years. We'll be at many fight events together. If you need someone to carry the bags for these big Saudi
Yeah.
events, I'm good with the right hand, if you know what I mean. Hey, hey, hey. Finish with a fist out like this, my guy.
Nah.
Squeeze the neck.